Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and on part 3, and possibly the last until another Super Smash Bros. Game comes out, I am going to be reviewing, aka retrospecting, on Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Wii. Yes, I remembered to bring props this time. I really need to get back to doing that until I get a capture card. So, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where to begin? The day that this came out, which I believe was May 10th, 2008, I was actually on the retreat with my high school youth group at the time, and we were dancing away the night, and I remember saying to my friend Andrew, "So, what do you think is better, the fact that Super Smash Bros. Brawl came out today, or the fact that we're on a retreat?" And he's like, "This retreat is way better." So yeah, I'd like to say that one of the first experiences where I came to experience the fullness of Christ's Passion is definitely way better than this, but this is still a pretty awesome package. Now, one of the major complaints about Super Smash Bros. Brawl is that it basically turned off both the casual and competitive audience alike by one tiny change. Well, two, really. One was that the game was significantly slower than Melee, although at least still light years faster than the Nintendo 64 game. And tripping. In the words of Geek Critique, tripping has to be one of the dumbest development decisions Nintendo has ever made. And honestly, I agree with them. I mean, okay, let's imagine a hypothetical situation where my girlfriend and I are playing Super Smash Bros. Together. I recently discovered that she's actually an avid gamer, despite the fact that all of her tastes are for games in the Game Boy family of Nintendo systems. So, imagine she and I were facing each other in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and she suddenly is like trying to get used to all the controls and finicking around, and then she trips, and she's like, "Oh, what did I do? Why am I tripping?" Well, the game does that at random, you see, Autumn. What? The game does that at random? Why would they do such a stupid thing? Beats me. Maybe they wanted to give, the competitive players a little bit less of an edge. Yeah, but they just destroyed the gameplay for me, because I'm a casual player. Yeah, you can kind of see where that's going. While it may have been good to balance things out to prevent overuse of wave dashing in Super Smash Bros. Melee, it ultimately slowed down the core fighting experience in more ways than one. And instead of the precise controlled matches of Super Smash Bros. Melee, it added a level of randomness that shouldn't have been there. Hence why competitive players mostly still stick to Melee or Smash for Wii U to this day. Apart from that, though, Super Smash Bros. Brawl is pretty much the definitive Smash experience according to as far as what it brought to the table. Sure, it didn't mechanically change things up much from the basic controls of Melee. Heck, we can even still use a GameCube controller, and back then it was actually built into the Wii, so good job, Nintendo. Good job. Give yourselves a pat on the back, and remind yourself to do that for whatever console comes after the Switch. So, Brawl, pretty much the only thing they added was you can air dodge multiple times, but no longer directional. However, they made up for it by just having bigger and better and more content. The sound test was unlocked from the beginning, allowing for a grand total of 258, or was it 250? 252 songs. True, a lot of them had to be unlocked, and doing so was a tedious progress, as you had to collect falling CDs during a match, and if you were playing against a CPU opponent, they'd actually actively try to get you away from the CD. But other than that, this was a whoppingly amazing soundtrack, featuring both originals and remixes. Sadly, there aren't that many orchestra pieces this time around, but at least the majority of the soundtrack from Melee was carried over. And they did have two pseudo-opera pieces in the form of the opening theme, which was composed by Nobuo Uematsu of Final Fantasy fame, and a new orchestra hybrid / vocal arrangement of the Fire Emblem theme. It's about time Nintendo starts giving us some more Fire Emblem love. And Ike was in the game too, so that probably helped Radiant Dawn do better than it actually did. Super Smash Bros. Brawl doesn't really have much that I haven't already talked about in other games. It has probably the most realistic graphics. I say realistic, not best, because the HD makeover in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U makes the game look more beautiful, even if Brawl has, more ridges on Mario's pants, or more stitches in Link's cap, for example. I mean, I could talk about the characters Brawl introduced that are mostly unchanged except for a few mechanical twists. The introduction of Final Smashes was kind of cool, but at the time they were extremely unbalanced, with some characters requiring you to stand right next to another and others that could basically take over the entire screen. Then there were a few odd choices, like Samus could turn into Zero Suit Samus, but only with her final smash. You'd have to input this crazy button scheme on the menu just to get her. Same thing with the Pokemon trainer. You'd have to constantly cycle between Pokemon, and it was really hard to get the Pokemon you wanted unless you positioned the cursor directly over the Pokemon. Which, in retrospect, it kind of probably would have been cooler if maybe they had done like a costume swap or something. Or did like the other Smash Bros. Games did and made the switching characters separate characters. Which, honestly, I wouldn't have thought of that until Smash for 3DS, but Zero Suit Samus and Samus, that was always a big concern of mine, is why do I have to start out as Samus? Despite her ridiculously revealing attire, Zero Suit is better in like every way. Super Smash Bros. Brawl also introduced the Stage Builder, which, as much as I hated it in Smash for Wii U, this is where it was at. You could basically create the stage of your dreams. At the time, we complained about the lack of usable parts, but overall, I don't think we gave Stage Builder enough credit at the time it came out, especially compared to what it was in the sequel. The only real complaint I have against it now is the fact that there's only 3 backgrounds to choose from, and none of them have any sort of animation whatsoever. Apart from that, you can have any song from the soundtrack, including some of the boring menu themes. And you can make it a pretty giant stage as well, and even upload them to an SD card if your Wii's system memory is running out. There were also some kind of strange and seemingly pointless additions to the game. Like, you had this chronicle that showed major Nintendo games released for all of their systems, even a few that I don't think were published by Nintendo, like some obscure sports games. There were also masterpieces, which were basically demos of Nintendo's greatest hits, albeit with a timer. And that's kind of stupid. Why couldn't they just make a dedicated level to show off and then kick you out of the game, rather than kicking you out in the middle of a race in F-Zero, or as you're just about to rescue Pauline in Donkey Kong? It's a baffling decision that the sequel didn't fix at all, so I'm wondering why masterpieces are even still around. The game returned with tons of trophies, including way more than Melee, and all of them were brand new, as well as stickers, which thematically didn't radically redesign most of the characters like a lot of the trophies tried to do, but at least they had a use in perhaps Brawl's biggest offering to the table, and that was the Subspace Emissary. If I can't talk about anything else besides the controversy of Solid Snake appearing in the game, marking the first time, along with Sonic the Hedgehog, that third-party characters appeared in a Smash Bros. Game, was a Subspace Emissary. The first fully fledged adventure game in a Smash Bros., and at this point the only one, because Sakurai's reasoning for not including one in the most recent entries is, I don't want the cutscenes to be uploaded online. You're gonna deny us that much fan service just because of YouTube? Japanese developers, why must everything be their opinions? At least he had the Smash ballot, so I'm not complaining about that. Anyway, you got Nintendo's All-Stars and Solid Snake battling it out to try to prevent the world from being taken over by the ruthless Subspace Emissary. The game would take you through full-on worlds with enemies to defeat, new items that couldn't be unlocked in the regular Smash mode, secret doors, an ability to unlock all of the hidden characters just by playing through the mode, even if some were kind of on the beaten and obscure path, exclusive boss battles that allowed you to fight the likes of Petey Piranha, Ridley, Meta Ridley, what's that guy's name in Pokemon? Rayquaza! In 3D, and in more of a visual spectacle than had ever been before seen, featuring loads of Nintendo cameos including Palutena, the Falcon Flyer, Rob. What didn't Subspace Emissary have? Replay value. Sure, it was cool that you could customize the characters in a somewhat limited degree. You could place stickers on the base of that character's trophy, and while it may have increased the character's stats, the game had no menu of sorts to show you how much the changes were being affected, so you basically just had to guess how effective your character was. Not to mention that some stickers were bigger than others, you'd have to figure out how to position them on the circle, which is easier said than done, especially when a sticker may look small, but it's actually really big. Not to mention that your character choice was restricted depending on the level, which was actually not a bad concept in execution. The problem was that it didn't have enough character-exclusive levels to make you truly feel like you were adventuring from throughout Nintendo's universe. Sure, there was a sky level where you played as Pit, but it didn't feature any Kid Icarus monsters. There was a jungle level where you played as Donkey Kong and Diddy, but no Kremlings. There was a Lost Woods level where you played as Link. But, as seems to be a pattern here, only those skull puppets from Twilight Princess appeared, and they tried to switch it up with like a switching between a light and dark version of the forest, but, I mean, no one who's not a Zelda fan would have caught that. Basically, the characters are doing their own things, but in a realistic fantasy world that doesn't really evoke the series of origins that much, with the major exception being Meta Knight's Halberd, which not only is a stage in the main game, but it also serves as a plot point. Speaking of the plot, it's pretty much non-existent in this game. There's no dialogue, no voice acting, aside from the occasional grunts and Falcon Punch and Aether when the characters activate their specials, but that's the extent of it. However, it's better than the absolutely nothing that we got in the latest Smash Bros. Games. And whenever I go back to replay Subspace Emissary, I'm reminded of some amazing design decisions that Nintendo made. First off, giving us arrows to help us navigate, because boy, could those later levels be a doozy to explore. The fact that it was two-player co-op that actually worked way better than New Super Mario Bros. Wii did, which came out a year later, and they didn't learn from this game's mistakes. And it has 50 save files. Let that sink in to your brains for a minute, my friends. 50! Why am I doing hand gestures? 50 save files. I can't think of a single game that has that many. And I used to think the humongous entertainment games on the PC had a ton, but this game puts that to shame. 50. Imagine if there was a Zelda game that had that many save files. And that was on the Wii. Huh. Anyway, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, in my opinion, is the Super Smash Bros. Game that definitively defined what the Smash Bros. Series was capable of, even if it had a few missteps along the way. It had a great soundtrack that didn't have enough orchestra pieces for my taste, but the ones that were included were at least the original versions of the song, rather than remaking them, which I guess is a fair compromise. The character roster was neat, even if there were a few weirdos and still some clones here and there. The tournament mode is, well, tournament mode. Not much you can say there. And the controls were great, except I should have mentioned this earlier. I apologize for that. But Brawl was the first game to offer customizable controls and different options. Sure, you could play with everyone's favorite, the GameCube controller, but just in case for some odd reason you never picked up one of these masterpieces, you could also play with the Wii Remote sideways, which is a nightmare in the making. The Wii Remote and Nunchuk combo, which gave you the option of shaking the Wii Remote to do a shake smash. Yeah, it was so precise, you can see why it didn't come back in the sequels. And the Wii Classic controller, which I have never owned, so I was not able to test that. And just in case you still don't like the GameCube controller, you can customize it. So if you want the B button to jump and the X button to do a special move, don't know why you would, but you can. And you can even save it to a name so that whenever you pick a certain name, your controller preferences are set. The stages, for the most part, are fairly balanced, with several melee stages returning. The new ones have this habit of liking to transform over time, with some stages having multiple phases where the stage drastically changes, including the Castle Siege stage from the Fire Emblem series, while others mostly change up the background, like the Lilac Cruise from Star Fox. There are a few weird ones here and there, like a full-size replica of 75M from Donkey Kong, complete with original sound effects and music and all. But then there's an awkward Hannenbau stage from an obscure DS title called Electroplankton, which has hardly any room to move around. Then a completely flat stage with a floating platform just thrown in there randomly called Smashville, which is based on Animal Crossing and changes time and season depending on your Wii's, or Wii U's now, internal clock. But, I kind of wish the Animal Crossing license was used better. I mean, besides KK Slider appearing on Saturday evenings to serenade the match, it really felt like kind of a missed opportunity, especially with Animal Crossing being one of Nintendo's newer IPs. Still, the game still continued to boast amazing graphics, and it seemed almost as if Nintendo had pretty much reached the height of what they could reinvent with Brawl, because Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U didn't feature too many stages that reinvented the graphics of classic franchises. And Brawl seems to be getting toward that trend, because while it may have done wonders for, say, Fire Emblem and Star Fox, they also decided to keep the retro feel for several of the stages. So when you play 75M or Mario Brothers, they retain the blocky feel of their NES/arcade originals. And they also had 2 third-party stages in the form of Shadow Moses Island from Metal Gear Solid and Green Hill Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog. Overall, a good dose of fan service throughout, including the assist trophies. Oh my gosh, this video has gone on too long because Brawl just has so much to talk about. And I guess if that's one thing that Brawl truly achieved, was it just has so much stuff. If Smash Bros. Has any chance of continuing after this, honestly, I'm a man of pretty simple tastes. All they have to do is just make sure they have an adventure mode and maybe pop one more character, and then I'll be cool with that. Until then, I think this game definitely said this is the Smash Bros. Game to end them all, and like Melee, Sakurai intended this to be the last one. When the man will officially make up his mind, I don't know, but I could have been content with this being the last one. I have to admit, it was a pretty solid contender for the greatest Smash Bros. Game ever. And although that's personally up to personal tastes, I definitely think this game nailed it as far as, let's see how much content we can cram onto a Wii disc. And to this date, I'm pretty sure only Xenoblade Chronicles even comes close by Wii standards. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope this didn't go on too long. Again, this game just has so much to talk about. I'm surprised it didn't go over 20 minutes. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.